What is up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Philly Sports from the Mighty Kingdom. Um, Talking a little about what is going on in the world of Philly sports. So, obviously, um we got the Sixers and the Flyers, both, having that playoff push, as it were. I'm hopeful that both make the playoffs. I know my buddy Mark M is not has as optimistic for the chances for the Flyers to make the playoffs. Uh, but it is what it is. Obviously, they really haven't been helping matters at times here in the stretch drive. Last night, obviously, a tough one. Um, he knows this. I can't stand a shootout. I mean, if the Flyers were better in shootouts, maybe it'd be different. But it sucks that it comes down to a skills competition to determine who wins games. Um, I understand the reasoning for it, and I certainly rather there be a winner in hockey than the way it used to be when there was ties and games ended in ties. And I get it. I mean, it is what it is. Both teams got a point and whatnot, but yeah, I mean, it's professional sports. You shouldn't end the game in a tie. I know it happens. It's rare, but it does happen in the National Football League from time to time. Soccer obviously has a lot of what they call draws. It is what it is. I mean, I'm not going to hate on it too much, but, um, you know, I'm of the believer that in sports there should be a winner and loser. I mean, a game should end with someone winning and someone losing. And it is what it is. They went to the shootout. I think they were doing it in the minor leagues before that, and they kind of adapted it in the NHL. And since the adaptation of the shootout after a 5-minute overtime, uh, the Flyers are the worst team in the league in the shootout. And I don't know if you can put the blame on the shooters or on the goalies that we've had over the years. Obviously, there's other players in the league who are very good in the shootout, including the guy who won the game yesterday in Franz Nielsen. Maybe the Flyers should get him in the offseason. I don't know. Or somehow shake T.J. Oshie loose from Washington. Maybe if they have both of them, they'll be better in shootouts. I really don't know. Um, but I also feel that maybe they got the wrong goalie from Detroit. Maybe they should have gotten Jimmy Howard because he's really good in the shootouts. At least the Flyers would win the shootouts in the regular season if that was the case. I mean, there is no shootouts in the playoffs. But it is what it is. The Flyers, it's been well documented, are not good in a shootout. And every time they go to a shootout, I don't know. As a Flyers fan, I kind of just assume it's going to be, well, there goes that extra point. And when they win it, I'm pleasantly surprised. But they've only won 2 of them this year, and they've been very poor with them for a number of years. Maybe they need to get an assistant coach who's like one of the best, shootout coaches in the league, just for that. I really don't know, because it's almost like, you give points away in that regard. I mean, they don't win shootouts, so you're not going to get that second point most of the time when it goes to a shootout, and it's very frustrating. Um, Last night's game overall was very frustrating. It was heartening how they played in the third period. They were down 3-1 going into the third period. All the goals happened in the second and third period in regulation after a scoreless first. And the Flyers are playing the Detroit Red Wings, and I know that it's hard to get up for a team like Detroit. I mean, this isn't your father's Red Wings. This isn't the Red Wings in their glory years when they were going to Cup finals just about every year or battling it out in the Western Conference finals against the Colorado Avalanche and such back in the day, and those bloodbaths that used to occur back then. This is a Red Wings team that is trying to refine themselves, is trying to refine their identity. They have some bad contracts on players. Some of the young players don't seem to hang around there. They move on. It is an organization, as they call it in hockey, that is that is very, very shaky right now. They have not played well for the last few years. They have had a lot of struggles. They moved into a beautiful new arena in Little Caesars Arena with the Pistons, but this is a team that has struggled. They lost 10 games in a row going into that game. And I know losing streaks are going to end. I mean, it's not a guarantee that you're going to play a team on a 10-game losing streak and you're automatically just going to walk in and win. There are some players on Detroit that play with pride, and you saw that last night with Dylan Larkin getting 2 goals and whatnot. But at the same time, that is a very beatable opponent. And you're coming down to the real nitty-gritty stretch drive in the season right now. And you take a look at the schedule coming up for the Flyers, and I'll get into that in a minute. But that was disappointing how they started the game. They just let the Red Wings dictate, the tempo and the pace of the game. In the first period, they were outshot. Second period again, they gave up 3 goals. Mrazek, the former Red Wing goalie, looked shaky as he's looked for most of the games that he's been here. The Flyers with goalie issues. I mean, stop me if you heard that one before. I mean, it's only been forever. It's really just maddening, if you think about it. But, again, they get off to a slow start, and they've done this, in this recent stretch. They got off to a slow start against Carolina last Saturday night, obviously St. Patrick's Day. I was with my buddy Mark Gammon and some other friends. We went to the Lehigh Valley Phantoms game. So we didn't see any of the Flyers game. We kept getting the updates, the score updates on the phones and whatnot. But again, hearing about how that game went down, they got off to a slow start. They were down. They came back from behind. They have been a very good third period team, and to their credit, they have. But it's like they keep, having deficits to have to overcome, in the third period. But they won that game. They beat the Capitals, and that was one game that they pretty much played well from start to finish. But there have been much too much times where they get off to slow starts, whether it's on the road, whether it's at home, against whoever the opponent is. And if you get off to a slow start against teams like Detroit and Carolina, teams that are not going to be in the playoffs, I mean, look what happens when you get off to slow starts against teams coming up in this stretch that they're going to be embarking on after Thursday against playoff caliber teams. And if you get off to slow starts against those teams, there's more than likely no coming back from it. I mean, they were able to come back last night. They tied the game in the third, and there was a late third period, goal by Detroit. And then Travis Konechny tied it up late in the third, kind of one of those bang-bang situations. Red Wings get a goal, the Flyers get a goal. They go to overtime. The Flyers had a power play in overtime, and they couldn't take advantage. And then, of course, the wonderful shootout. And, they lose that one 1-0. And there goes the extra point. Now, a couple good things about last night, at least, if we can say at least. And I would much rather the Flyers have gotten 2 points last night than the 1, but they did get the 1 point. The Devils lost on the West Coast to the Sharks. They're one of the teams chasing the Flyers. Right now, though, the Flyers are the first wild card because the Red Hot Blue Jackets won last night, and they leapfrog the Flyers. They're up by a point. It's very close. I mean, the Capitals, the Penguins, the Blue Jackets, the Flyers, the Devils, and even the Panthers, who are on the outside looking in. But they're all right there, when you come to points. The bad thing is the Panthers have 3 games at hand, and the Devils have 2 games at hand. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily they're definitely going to win all those games, but you're talking about 5 combined games at hand by 2 teams there behind the Flyers. Those are points that the Flyers really can't get. So that's going to be a bit of an issue. The Flyers, and again, I feel that they could be a playoff team this year, but they have definitely got to play better, and they've got to get off to better starts, for sure. And there really isn't any excuse for it. I mean, if you're a team aspiring to make the playoffs, why are you getting off to a bad start against the lowly Red Wings? It makes no sense. You got to come out. You got to set the tempo. You got to set the pace. You got to get the early, maybe an early couple goals, because then the Red Wings lost 10 in a row. They're pretty much going to put their heads down and say, uh-oh, here we go again. But you give them a chance, and you make them feel like they have a shot to win the game, and that's exactly what they did. And again, losing streaks aren't going to last forever. A team's going to win eventually. But it's disheartening, seeing how they get off to starts like that. So that was, it was disappointing last night watching that. Also based off what the Flyers had done over the weekend get a big 4 points. They beat Carolina on Saturday night. It was a tough back-to-back. And then they win at home on Sunday against the Capitals. And they get big 4 points there. And then, okay, here we go. Let's keep the momentum going in Detroit. Nope. They lose in a shootout. Well, here they are now, the first of the wild card teams. They were in third. Now they're bumped down to fourth because Columbus is just on some, big roll. So we'll see how things go. The schedule ahead looks like this as far as the next 4 games. The Flyers will be playing tomorrow night at home against the New York Rangers, and that's never a gimme game with those two teams. Still a battle, and the Rangers are going to want nothing else but to help, knock the Flyers out. The Rangers aren't going to be a playoff team this year. They've been very disappointing, but they still have Lundqvist in net, and they're still a team that it's a divisional game, it's a rivalry game, and again, they want to knock the Flyers out. So it's not going to be a gimme game. But the Flyers have got to come out with a purpose tomorrow night. They have got to set the tone and tempo early in that game. I mean, you're playing at home. You're playing in front of your fans. Set the tempo early. I know my buddy Mark M's going to be there. Set the tempo early. Let's get the 2 points tomorrow night. Because it's very important they do this, because you look at the next 3 games, all on the road, very difficult. Sunday they play against those Penguins, and the Penguins have given them all sorts of trouble this season. They're playing in Pittsburgh. That's a nationally televised game on NBC. And then they go to the West. They go against the Dallas Stars on the road, and I know they've been scuffling a bit, but they're still a good team, particularly at home. And then they're going up against Colorado, the resurgence Avalanche this season, who, after not making the playoffs last year, have really started putting it together this year, and some of their young talent really started to come into form, such as Nathan McKinnon. So that's going to be a tough opponent. You're looking at 3 teams also that score a lot of goals. And the Flyers have scored their share of goals too. They really have. But one of the problems the Flyers have had is keeping the puck out of their own net. And you're going up against Pittsburgh, and you're going up against Dallas, and you're going up against the Avalanche after this game against the Rangers. And, the Rangers have some players that can score too, even though they made a lot of moves at the trade deadline. It's a completely different Rangers team, but they still have some guys that can hurt you if they give them the chance. Flyers defensively are very young for the most part, besides McDonald and Gudas, both of which I could really live without next season. But that's for another video. But the nucleus of this defense is very young, and obviously they have made some mistakes. I think Provorov has been in a bit of a sophomore slump this year. It's good to see Ghost playing well, but you still have the youth there, and of course with Provorov and Hag and Sam Hine, they're going to be good in the future. I mean, this the youth that they have on defense is going to be better as time goes on. But again, you see the youth and the mistakes they make, a lot of turnovers. Not being able to clear the puck at times, not clearing up the crease at times too. I remember some weeks ago against the Bruins in Boston, they gave a very late third period goal because they couldn't clear the crease, and I believe that was really more the fault of Couturier, and I think it was Brad Marchand who they couldn't bump out off the crease when he had that rebound. And, there was like 2 Flyers right there. And it's like maybe one of you would have wanted, knock them out of the way. I don't know. But, so it's been a bit frustrating at times when you see that. The Flyers have also given up some late third period goals, as I just mentioned, about against Boston at home some weeks ago. A little over a week ago, maybe against Columbus, they gave up, Vegas. When they played Vegas, they gave up a late third period goal on a battle against the boards that they couldn't win at home. And Vegas was more hungry in that situation. It was disheartening, but again, this is a team with a lot of youth, and they've showed it this season. Now they have had some. There has been positives. I mean, Giroux has had a bounce-back season. He was really hurt last year, a lot of injuries with the shoulder and whatnot. He bounced back this year. They also moved him to the wing, which was a good move. I like the play of Couturier, 30 goals now, 100 in his career as a Flyer, so congrats to him on that last night. I like the play of, obviously, Wayne Simmons and Voracek. They're going to give you what they're going to give you every year. They're solid. 2 solid players. And, again, goes with a nice bounce-back season. Some of these other guys, they're young, and they're going to get better as time goes on. But you're just going to have to deal with the growing pains this season. Goalie, obviously, has been an issue, but if you think about it, they're on their, fourth goalie now in Mrazek and in line when he's in there. And most of the times that spells doom for teams. And they've been able to stay afloat for the most part. They're still in the playoff hunt, even though they've had the injuries with Elliott and with Neuwirth. But honestly, I've been waiting so long for this team to get the goalie situation right. And they thought they had it some years ago with Mason, and that just never worked out as they had hoped. And I know they have Hart coming up through the system, and Lyon looks like he might be a nice young goalie. They have some guys in the system that are going to be coming up, obviously, namely Hart, but that's still a few years away. And I know Elliott really is kind of like a placeholder maybe until those guys are ready. But and he was playing pretty good. I mean, he was playing pretty solid. It's a shame he got hurt when he did, because I think if he could have stayed healthy and stayed in net, I think they would have had a little more stability in net that they've had. The move from Mrazek, I mean, early on it looked like it was okay, but he's really left a lot to be desired. He gives up a lot of soft goals. And as I said, they probably got the wrong goalie from Detroit when they did, because Jimmy Howard is a veteran, and Jimmy Howard is really good in shootouts. So I don't know. But, the Flyers, I guess they figured Mrazek's younger, give him a shot. They had to do it. It was kind of a desperation move because they lost two goalies, and Lyon was very shaky in that at that time. And he's a young goalie. I mean, what can you expect? But so that's why they made that move. And at the time, you're thinking, okay, it might be a solid move. At least it helps them until Elliott or Neuwirth can come back. They give him a goalie with experience in the NHL, and it really hasn't worked out for the most part. He has given up way too, and not all of his fault. I mean, there has been times where the defense have not done their job in front of him, not clearing the crease, giving up the rebounds, or just giving up way too many shots. But could he play better? Absolutely. Will he play better? We're going to have to see. It's still kind of a goalie roulette going on right now when you have him and Lyon in games. I kind of hope Lyon starts tomorrow night, to be honest. He played pretty good last night, coming in relief of Mrazek when he got pulled. He only gave up the one goal, and obviously in the shootout. But, I think overall in his last few games, the last few opportunities, he's played pretty good. So I'd like to see him in net tomorrow night against the Rangers and see what happens. I mean, you hate to say ride the hot goalie, but that might be what this team has to do. Forget about the experience. If Lyon's playing better, keep him in net. Even in this tough stretch against Pittsburgh, as I mentioned, Pittsburgh, Dallas, Colorado, all good goal-scoring teams. But if Lyon's playing good, if he plays well, if he gets to start tomorrow against the Rangers, I think you just got to keep him in there. If anything else, a young goalie, these other teams might not have seen him before, so there isn't that book out on how to beat him like there is with Mrazek. You go top shelf because Mrazek's a smaller goalie, so he doesn't cover as much net. You see a lot of teams shooting up high, on him, and sometimes those lead to goals. So, yeah, disappointing game last night against Detroit. It really should have been a 2-point night for the Flyers. They were able to salvage a point. Again, the shootout gets them. What can you do? Maybe it shouldn't have came down to the shootout. Again, they had a power play late in the third period, and they almost scored on it late in the third. Simmons couldn't quite get the puck in. And then they had some shots, with the power play. Not as many as they did at the end of the third period. And that's one of the things. When they had that power play in the overtime, they couldn't generate enough with it. And it was tough because I'm thinking in the back of my mind, boy, they better score here. They better score because I don't want this thing going to a shootout, knowing their history. Yeah, went to a shootout, and yeah, we all know the rest. But it was a point. It was important. At least they got the point with some of the other scores that was going on. Obviously, they fell to the first wild card, but the Devils lost. That was good. And the Penguins lost too. I mean, for all that's going on, the Flyers are still within striking distance of Pittsburgh and Washington. And will they catch them? I don't know. Maybe not. I mean, their schedule's pretty tough, so we'll see. But they're in striking distance, if anything else. Like I said, they're even just a point behind Columbus for the third spot, so we'll see how it goes. So big week coming up for the Flyers. Tough opponents, and we'll just have to wait and see how that shakes out. For the 10-9-8 76ers, they've been on a roll. They've been beating teams that they should be beating. Teams like the Nets, the Knicks, the Hornets. They're beating the Grizzlies at halftime. I think it was like 58-44. If I remember that score correct at half. It snowed today, so it's one of those snow days. But they were still able to get the game in tonight. And the Sixers have been playing pretty good. I've been a little disheartened, with some of those losses against playoff caliber teams like the Pacers. Like I said a week ago in my I want LeBron rant. And I still do. And I will still beat the drum to get him here. But they have played well, and give them credit. I mean, look, they do have the rest of the season. They have a pretty favorable schedule, and that's fine. If that helps them move up in the standings, maybe even have home court in the first round for the NBA playoffs, that's even better. They play really well at home. Would like to see them get some wins against some playoff caliber teams. It is great, when you can beat the lowly Grizzlies and the lowly Hornets and the lowly Nets and Knicks. That's wonderful. But when you go up against the Pacers, the Heat, some of those other teams that you might be battling in the playoffs, would be nice to get some wins there. And I know they're young, and I know that, this isn't a finished product. But I still want to see them compete against those teams and get some W's against them. And I don't know how many more they have on the schedule. I know coming up, obviously tonight they're playing the Grizzlies. Tomorrow they're playing another team that they should beat in Orlando. And then after that on the weekend they got Minnesota coming in. Minnesota's one of those teams fighting it out in the Western Conference for a playoff spot. And then they got Denver after that at home. So counting tonight, 3 out of the next 4 games at home at Wells Fargo where they play really well. So hopefully that will be some wins. And with the fact that teams like the Bucks have been struggling, below them, get a little more ground on them, and maybe you continue to try to catch some of those teams that they're right there with, neck and neck with, like the Pacers. I think even the Wizards are in there too, that they can catch and they can overtake, and get that higher seed, which would be awesome. For the NBA playoffs. So I'm happy with how they're playing. Obviously, Ben Simmons with his triple-doubles, playing really well. Should be the Rookie of the Year. Hands down, I think. I know Mitchell's doing pretty good in Utah, too, but my vote goes to Ben Simmons, obviously, and I know that's biased, but I don't see Mitchell having too many triple-doubles out there in Utah, but Ben Simmons should be the Rookie of the Year. And we'll see how that goes as the Sixers make their playoff push. Winnable games coming up. Obviously tonight, finish it out against the Grizzlies, and then tomorrow night at Orlando. Not to say anything's a given, as we know with the Flyers last night, but the Sixers have, for the most part this season, taken care of business against the teams that they should be. It's been some of those other teams that's given them some trouble, and they've won some of those games. Like they beat Cleveland a month ago or so. And that was impressive. That was a good win for them. But, some of those other games just got – and I understand that the one Miami game, I mean, Redick was open for a 3, and he should have made that open 3. He didn't. Sometimes that's how the ball bounces. But they could have won that game. They let Dwayne Wade take over in the fourth quarter. I mean, he's got future Hall of Famer. What can you do? But still, Redick should have made that 3. And then the next time in Miami, it didn't go their way either. And of course, against the Pacers a couple weeks ago, here at at home, it didn't go their way either. And again, like I said, I'd like to see them win those games too. And in the future, I believe they will. I think this is just the start of things. So let's just keep going forward. Villanova over the weekend gave us a nice weekend. 2 wins so far in the tournament. They're in the Sweet 16. For the second time in 3 years. Obviously, last year they couldn't get out of the first weekend when they lost to Wisconsin in the second round. The second game of the weekend, obviously as the defending NCAA champs, couldn't get past Wisconsin. Tough game there, kind of came down to the end. Wisconsin made a shot, but good to see how they played this weekend. And boy, were they on point on St. Patrick's Day on Saturday against Alabama. And I thought that Alabama game could be kind of close because Alabama looked pretty good, but boy, Villanova just took them apart. So that was great to see. They play Friday night against West Virginia, and we'll see if they can move on to the Elite Eight from there, and then play on the weekend against insert opponent here. It's been a wacky tournament, a lot of upsets. My bracket's pretty much done for the most part. I still have a couple teams in there, but yeah, it didn't do too good last weekend. But Villanova winning and they seem to have they seem to have that swagger about them, that they had a few years ago when they won the tournament against North Carolina, and that's good to see. Obviously, if they can give us another deep run this year, they obviously went further already than they did a year ago, but if they can give us that deep run, nice little Final Four appearance, championship, hey, you know what? Never know. 2 out of 3 years, right? Good to see. So we'll see. So V for Villanova, V for victory. Let's get West Virginia on Friday night, and then we'll see what happens from there. So good stuff by the Cats. The Phillies, obviously, still in spring training. You know what? Records are the records in spring training. What can you do? I mean, it's really about getting work and working on things. So you never really look at the spring training record as the great, all end all be all of what the season is going to bring. But I'm pretty, I'm looking forward to the season. Obviously, the Phillies have a lot of young talent, and they brought in guys like Santana and Jake Arrieta, as I said a week ago, to kind of help teach these, young players, how to play in the league and what do you got to do to win? What do you got to do to win in this league? And I'm looking forward to this season. I really am. Am I expecting the Phillies to, contend for a World Series? No, they're not ready for that. But can they contend for a wild card spot? Possibly. Sure. I think that this is a team again that has. They have that attitude that they want to win. And I know saying it and doing it are two completely different things. But it's a different attitude than what they've had the last few years when they just were seemingly content to be 500, right? So this year the attitude is, hey, we want to win. We want to have success. And obviously they got to do it on the field. But I think that the mental approach and I think what they're saying and how they're doing it, I think is certainly a good sign. And I do like the young crop of players that they have. I think they have some really good players coming up who are going to be on the field in opening day, and also, in Scott Kingery's example, going to be in Lehigh Valley to start the season, but he's going to come up and be their future second baseman. And I think we all know what happened the last time the Phillies had a nice little crop of young players, right? Went pretty good. So I'm looking forward to it. I'll break down the Phillies a little more and what I think the season is going to bring next week, because the season actually starts a week from tomorrow. The Phillies are in Atlanta to start the season against the Braves in the NL East division bout there to start the season. And like I said, I'm really looking forward to it. I love the addition of Jake Arrieta and Carlos Santana. I think both of them are going to bring that veteran leadership to this team, and also with in Arrieta's case, championship pedigree. And I think he's certainly going to help the pitching staff. And I do think the Phillies are going to contend this year, at least possibly for a wild card spot. But you never know. And even if they don't and they come close, it's okay, because in next offseason, maybe there'll be a player for one of those big boys who will be available. They'll certainly have a lot of money to throw at them, and if they show signs of improving and being a team that's right on the cusp of making the playoffs, I mean, that's going to want to lure some players here. Anyhow, already Jake Arrieta came here and Santana. Those are two guys that could have gone anywhere, but they chose to come here. So they see some good things with this team. And yeah, getting paid helped, but you still want to, going from teams that have been in the playoffs perennially, if you're going to go to another team, you have to believe in that team. You have to believe in what that team could be, if not that very next season, but for the seasons to come, and how they can build and what they could become. So, two good additions, certainly better additions than last season. But the Michael Saunders and the likes of those players, it's certainly a little better. What they went out and did this offseason than last offseason. Of course, those players were just stopgap players, 1-year rentals. This is a little different. And like I said, I'm excited to see what Gabe Kapler does as a manager. I think it's certainly a new, different approach, kind of a new age approach, if you will. And we'll see how that goes. I think he'll be pretty good. He he seems to have a lot of confidence. And he's very positive. And you know what? That does help a young ball club. We've seen that on other teams, such as the Cubs, when Madden went there, and how that kind of became. Now, I'm not saying Gabe Kapler's right there with Joe Madden just yet, but still, that positive influence, the guy who does things a little unconventionally, but believes in his team and believes in his teaching ability and what that can do. And well, in the Cubs case, they won a championship for the first time since a long time, a very long time. So it certainly goes a long way. And obviously, Jake Arrieta was a big part of that pitching rotation that season, and obviously brings that here to Philly. So I'm looking forward to the Phillies season. I'm looking forward to, this playoff push, as we say, with the Sixers, with the Flyers. The Flyers got to play better, no doubt about that. They got to start games better. Hopefully, starting tomorrow night against the Rangers. My buddy Mark M will be there, Mr. Season of the Fan for the Flyers, and I'm sure he'll have a vid, coming up, and at some point soon with his thoughts. So yeah, as for now, I'm just going to get back to the Sixer game, and hopefully we can get another win tonight against the lowly Memphis Grizzlies. And boy, how tough times have become there in Memphis after being, I think they said, a playoff team for the past 7 years. Obviously going to miss the playoffs for the first time in a long time. Of course, the Sixers are going to make the playoffs for the first time in some years. So obviously good to see for the Sixers, and hopefully, like I said, just continue to play better, and when the time comes that they play those playoff caliber teams, let's get some W's there before the postseason starts, and really get crank this up. So anyhow, it's been an interesting week, obviously, in Philadelphia sports. Of course, the Eagles making it official with the guys that they brought in, with the free agency starting and all last week. And now, of course, the moves were official. Now, of course, we knew about the moves, but now they were official. So, welcome to Philly, of course, for Michael Bennett and Worley and Haloti Ngata. Of course, keep that defense going. Although I would like to see them bring in a receiver and a tight end. Still kind of waiting on that, but I'm sure they will. Howie, no worries what he can do. We should know that by now. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for watching another installment of Philly Sports from the Mighty Kingdom, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I will probably have my Phillies installment next week, so look forward to that. And until then, I'll see you guys around the channel if I have anything else to post. And thanks for watching. As always, let's go Sixers, let's go Flyers, and I'll see you guys in the next installment. Take care.